Excellent. All right, guys. As I told you before, for the menu today, we will have to talk about what we call inventory adjustment. Okay, so I have to go back first to talk about conceptually what does it mean inventory adjustment. Okay, let's go for this concept of inventory adjustments. So did you ever heard about it before? What is inventory adjustment? Of course, you heard about it because we covered this in accounting, in particularly financial accounting, maybe intermediate accounting, because inventory you covered at least 2 chapters in. Okay, talk about the cost flow assumptions, talk about the perpetual inventory system, the periodic inventory system, etc., etc. So did you ever heard about inventory adjustment, and what is it? Okay, the mic is yours, guys. Inventory adjustment, what is it? Yes.
When at the end of the year, we may make some inventory adjustment. We check our inventory. If it does not match what we have in the books, we may make the inventory adjustment.
That's right. So if you're, and thank you so much, Rami. So it simply, it reminds us this inventory account. Okay, so the inventory account, this asset account, as you know, so by the end of the year, or by the end of the period or the accounting period, so we say when we have to prepare the financial statements, you have to look at the balance. Okay, the balance of what? The balance of ending inventory. Okay, ending inventory. The question is this balance of ending inventory? You see that it's based on transactions, right? You can add when you purchase an inventory or you produce an inventory, of course, it's going to be debited. When you're selling an inventory, it's going to be credited. So by the end, after all of these transactions occur during the period of time, so you look at the balance of this ending inventory that you have to present in the statement of financial position, right? So that's this ending balance of inventory. For example, the ending balance is indicated that you have 100 units at a cost of, I don't know, so say that $5, okay? So normally it's $500. So what is there is that we have 100 units. 100 units by the end of the period existing. In practice, but you see that this is based on recordings, based on your books, okay? Debit and credit. But in reality, you have to check whether this one is real or not. So we do what we call the activity that we're doing by the end of the period, and it's a part of the adjustment, and the adjustment, it's a must that we do prior to preparing financial statements. We call this activity the physical count. Physical count. When doing the physical count, guys, as simple as that, we're going to physically compute the number of units existing. For example, the physical count report shows that 98 units are on hand. We say that 98 units. By looking at these 98 units, the outcome of this physical count, you look at the difference, right? There is a difference of 2 units. Now, the 2 units are missing. What shall we do? Shall we present in the books or in the statement of financial position, you see, or the balance sheet? Shall we present 100 or 98? Of course, you have to present it at the real, which is 98. So therefore, you need what we call an inventory adjustment. And an inventory adjustment is simply you compare between the balance in your books with the physical count, okay? So 2 units are missing. What is the adjustment entry that we need to record by the end of the period? So I'm asking, for example, at December 31st, okay, what should be the journal entry to record this adjustment of inventory? What shall we do? What is the account that is debited and what is the account that should be credited?
If we're going to reduce the inventory, so we're going to credit it, and I think we're going to debit an allowance or an inventory adjustment account similar to the allowance.
So simple as that. It's much more easier to tell me what's the nature of the account that we're going to use in the debit. Okay, so this credit, of course, it's for an asset. Okay, so because you'd like to decrease the asset, and this is correct, but you'll be debiting what? Is it an asset account, liability,
Contra
expense for
asset
the...
account.
If it's contra asset, so you're thinking about it like for account receivable. But you see that you credit an asset, you debit a contra asset. It's not matching, you see, because when you debit a contra asset, what happens? The contra asset is an opposite of an asset. So it's increasing by crediting and decreasing by debit. So what happens? So you are willing to decrease a contra asset. I think when decreasing a contra asset, it's the meaning of increasing an asset, you see. When decreasing a contra asset, it is affecting the asset positively. Yani, it looks like you are increasing the asset one more time, which is not valid. The two units that are missing, we know. Why you didn't find them? Unless there are two units that are missing. Why? Cost of goods sold? You mean sold? But if the goods are sold, normally we have to credit them.
Yes.
Cost of goods sold. So every time you're selling, you put this sale in the cost of goods sold. The two units that are missing, شنو اللي صار لهم? So we have multiple hypotheses, right, for the two units.
Theft, maybe.
Exact. So it could be related to any fraudulent act, you see. Theft, possible. Damaged. Okay. Lost. I don't know, say that lost by the end of the day. But we said fraud, damage, lost. So all of this represent what? Represent something that you are losing, and normally you should be debiting what? An expense account. Exact. And this expense account, so multiple ways that we can use, for example, inventory, we call it inventory write-off. Okay, that was the account that we used in intermediate accounting, okay? But are we going to use inventory write-off? We will see, okay? So that's the point. So we need to make an adjustment this way. And the other possibility, and I think that it's rarely found, rarely found. In this situation, it's so common. What is rarely found is that, for example, you find in the books that we have 100 units, but the physical count is informing about the existence of not 98, but think about it, 102. So you find more products than what is theoretically existing there. Most likely in this situation, guys, there is an error. Error in what? In the recording. Because it's so difficult and it's rarely found that, for example, you purchase something or you are finding inventory theoretically existing more than these, say that less than what is in practice existent. So this is rarely found situation, and usually if you find it, it's much better that we have what? To check. Check on what? On the transactions that we recorded. Okay, you double check. Most likely you forgot to record one of the sales. For example, you forgot, or you made an error when purchasing. Instead of recording 6, you recorded 8 units purchased. You see that instead of 6. So you'll find that more in practice. I'm sorry. So you recorded at 8, but in reality you purchased 10. So of course when you're recording 8, so of course you have 2 more. It is possible that it's an error in recording. That's why I said, okay, the reverse situation most likely is an indicator of error. All right, so how can we make use of the inventory adjustment on the software? What shall we do? Okay, because when you look at the inventory and services, in this example, we have 3 types of inventory items, A13, A15, A18. But in practice, guys, you may face thousands of inventory items. So it's not simple, as we can see, 3 units, it's 3 units or 3 types of inventory. It's very, very simple. All right, so let's take an example now. So I'm going to the inventory and services, this module there. And I would like to adjust this inventory, adjust the inventory. For example, How many units do we have, for example, at March 31st of A13? If you look at the dashboard, you will find that the quantity on hand is 182. Okay, 182 units. Imagine that we prepare the financial statements at March 31st. What shall we do? We have to do the physical count. Okay, let's assume that we did the physical count. And the physical count report is indicating that 180 units are on hand. So it's not 182. So what shall we do? We have to adjust. You see, guys, under the inventory and services menu, you have an icon that we call adjust inventory. Okay, adjust inventory. You click on. All right. And you go to this inventory adjustment and you fill in this, let's say, fields. And when filling in the fields, you understand how it works, this inventory adjustment. So first thing first, what is the source document that we are using in inventory adjustment? Usually is the physical count. Usually is the physical count. Okay. So we say, for example, you can write physical count. I don't know, number 12. Okay. All right. Is it primary location? Or, of course, you know, guys, that when we created the inventory items, we do have the possibility to choose the location on which you store this inventory, because sometimes you're not storing in the same company. For instance, if you're renting in a warehouse that is outside the company, of course, you can use another location. So it's the location of the inventory that you did the physical count on. And for the comment, of course, you put the date. The date is the date of the reporting date, the date you prepare the financial statements, because you need the adjustments at that date. For the comment, you put, I don't know, say that damaged goods as an example, okay? And as I told you guys, what shall we do? In this just A13, for the A15 and A18, we found them the same as what is existing in the books. So it's just on the A13 that the physical count is indicating 180. So what shall we do to make this inventory adjustment? Look, first thing first, in this table, you have to select the item in question. It means that in which you have to adjust the inventory. So the item is A13. You select it. Okay. In the tab quantity, you see, guys, for example, the counts, etc. So we'll talk about it. So in the quantity, what is the quantity missing? So if the physical count is informing about 180 and in the books is 182. So what is the quantity missing of A13? It's 2 units, right? So in this quantity, you have to put -2. I said that -2 to inform that the problem of this inventory adjustment is that we're missing 2 units. Okay. And before that, you click on process and you record this adjustment at March 31st. You can, as usual, guys, check the transaction details. You check the journal entry. You go to report, display adjustment transaction. Guys, look at the accounts that are used here. What is debited? It's an expense account. It's adjustment write-off. Adjustment write-off. It's the account that we use to say that we lost something on the inventory, right? And we credit what? Computer supplies. How the software determines that we should debit this particular account, not other account, and why the software is able to detect that we are talking about these computer supplies, is this A13. The question is how this software is able to detect this with ease. Okay, so this is correct 100%, but how the software is able to detect that?
Because we linked them.
Because of the linked account. Excellent. The linked account. And I go back. Okay, so I will go back to this later on, but I would like to show you something. Go to setup. Under setup settings, we are in the inventory and services. You go to linked account. Look at the linked account, guys. So we have something related to the linked account. It's particular to item assembly cost. Unfortunately, we will not have the chance to talk about the assembly cost because for manufacturing company, uh, you know, guys, that for some inventories, for manufacturing companies, we have three types of inventory. We have the raw materials inventory, work in process inventory, finished goods. Okay, but sometimes when we have to present the work in process inventory, we can talk about an item assembly cost. Okay, so it's just try to compute the cost of the work in process inventory that we have to show on the balance sheet. But adjustment write-off. So you see that we have to put in this linked account. What is the account that you have to use to write off the inventory? Okay. So for example, if I change, I say, just to check it with you, right? So if I change this adjustment write-off to become, I don't know. So I'll select one of the expenses on the fly, right? Okay, so right, it's I don't know. So let's say office supplies. Okay, office supplies. This is the expense. Okay, click on OK. And if you go to adjust inventory, as I said, you can go to the item A13. You select it's -2. You go to report display. You'll see that the account is what office supplies. So it's just a part of your job, guys, that you set the appropriate linked account. So if the linked accounts are well set, of course, you are able to use the software easily. So getting back, linked account, set up settings, linked account. So just for the adjustment, inventory, right off. All right, where is it? The count. I forgot that. I forgot the number. It's adjustment write-off 5130, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is this one? And I click on OK. Getting back. Adjust. As I said, the source. Physical. Number 12. Date, we put it as is. The item is A13. And it's -2. By the way, guys, if you have another item that you missed some element for example, I can add in the second line A15. Okay, so just for the sake of example, say that A15, you select. So of course, I'm using it as an example. So I say that -1, I'm missing 1 unit. This cost, of course, the cost per unit, it's determined by the software, because when you're entering this inventory, of course, the system will understand what is the cost of the inventory that you purchased with. So, of course, you have the cost per unit clearly mentioned. How the cost is determined to be, for example, 24.85. So it's based on what? What is the cost flow assumption that we use? Okay, so because the unit cost here, how to detect it, how to determine it. The software, as I showed to you earlier, and based on IFRS, we have the FIFO and we have the weighted average. Okay. Let me first click on report display, and I will show you the system. So what happened? Adjustment write-off is debited for 2 accounts. We see that computer supplies, we're missing 150, and 1 unit cost is 24.86. And if I validate, I click on process. Okay. Excellent. I'll get back to this. And the problem is, guys, when you're using the inventory, when you credit an inventory, DIMA software, as you know, guys, like what we studied before in accounting. And for example, if you purchase during January 100 units at a cost of $10, and during February, for example, you purchase additional 100 units at a cost of 11, okay, and during March we purchased 100 units at a cost of 12. Okay, imagine that during April we sold 100 units. Okay, sold. The question is, what is what? What is the cost of goods sold? It's based on what? Cost flow assumptions. Are you using first in, first out? Are you using the weighted average? Okay, السوفتوير اعطاني الكوست بير يونت وقت اللي عملنا كريدت of the inventory there when it comes to the inventory adjustment or inventory write off. كيفاش السوفتوير عرف الكوست؟ So based on the method that we are applying. So from where I can understand the method that the software is using to compute the cost of goods sold. You go to setup settings, right? Under setup settings, you go to options. Under options, you see, guys, inventory costing, average cost. هيك علاش لقينا 25 point something, okay, 25 because it's computing the inventory costing method is what is the average cost. You can select the first in, first out, right? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir, why in my
Yes.
computer I don't have the option to
Yes.
choose the average cost or the five? I don't know.
What do you mean?
It seems
You don't have them, or you are unable to select?
I'm unable to select. It's gray.
Simple. هنا usually زكريا تكون عندك another window، عندك فناتر أخرى محلولة على السوفت وير لازم تسكرها.
Okay.
تسكر الفناتر الكل اللي عندك وتخلي كانش المين فيو هذه، اوكي؟ وقتها تمشي السير اب سيتنجز ومن بعد تختار. Is it okay with you now?
Just the computer got stuck.
All right, no problems. But you tested, you'll find it okay معناتها. Usually إذا كان تلقاو يا guys، إذا كان you find the situation إنه تلقى الاوبشنز مش نعطيكم example باش تفهموني أكثر. I said that for example نمشي suppliers and expenses باش نحل invoice. Create an invoice. Okay. I'm just like to show to you شنو اللي يلقاه زكريا. عندي الويندو هذه باش نحط فيها invoice, right? So let's go to setup settings. Usually إذا كان تمشي للinventory and services options شفت تلقاه gray. ماشي if you got it. I cannot select whether it's average cost or first in first out. The problem is إني عندي window أخرى محلولة على جنب اللي هي الانفويس هذه هكا ولا. So if you close it وقتها ترجع ترجع. Okay, so I have to close this one. I get back to this invoice. Close this invoice. Get back to setup settings. Under inventory services options تلقى عندك توا option is valid and you select first in first out or average cost. Is it okay?
Yes, it works now. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Hi guys, the question usually after using one of the features in the software, I can ask you in the exam, you print this inventory adjustment, this particular inventory adjustment, you print it out using a PDF. How you can do that? From which menu you have to go and you print out this particular inventory adjustment. Any suggestions? I would like to print it out.
Reports menu.
Yes, but usually there هكا ولا it's okay. Reports. وين نلقى transactions that are recorded. معناتها journal entry. هنوش I can find the debit and credit.
Transaction detail.
That's correct. Transaction details. But you are able to print out ولا to see ولا to view all. تختار هنا ولا هنا تشوفوا guys عندنا options أخرين. I can use the general, the account reconciliation, the deposit, the expenses. انك تختار شنو type of transactions that I would like to show. خاطر millions and thousands of transactions. إذا كنت you would like to see some particular transactions, you can see only the payment, revenues, the receipts, the payroll related to salaries, etc. Or you can find what? Inventory adjustments, right? Click on it, inventory adjustment, and you select the period on which you would like to see the inventory adjustment that you did during that period. So you see, for example, the starting is January 1st, 2023, finish March 31st, but you can of course select the date that you have. Of course, it is based on the session date. This is the maximum. And you click on, okay, so you can show everything. You can click on OK. So how many inventory adjustments do we have? Only one. And this is the only one transaction that we did. And obviously, guys, you can print it out. Okay, you can use the print. And of course, you print it in the form of PDF, of course, and you can upload it on this system. See? Let's say inventory write off. And it's okay. I'm just double clicking on the PDF document to show it to you. This is how it looks like. Okay. Guys, is it clear for the inventory adjustment?
Yes, sir.
Nice. Do you have any particular question on this part, or I can move on to another feature on the software, which is called recurring transactions.
It's clear, Professor. We can move on.
Excellent. So for today's session, as I told you, we have two things. So the second one is called recurring transactions. What do you think about it? Recurring transactions. What are your expectations about this? When using the software, we may face what we call recurring transactions.
Transactions that happen a lot.
Ideas? Sorry?
Recurring meaning they happen a lot, so they're repeated in our company.
Exact. So the main feature or characteristic of the recurring transaction that is are so repetitive. So repetitive. Give me some examples that are so repetitive in a business life of a company. So the same transaction is occurring the same way, matter the same debit and credit. It's always the case.
Sale transactions for a merchandising company.
Thank you. Sales transaction. But السوفت حل لنا المشكله بتاع السيلز ترانزاكشن على خاطر يعدي لنا طول. As you know, I can go to clients and revenues. When you create an invoice, هكا ولا you create an invoice by making use of the link, the count, etc. مش هتعطيني حسبة صحيحة على الديبت and credit. فاتحلت المشكلة. You're right. معناتها the sales transaction is one of them. But this recurrent transaction is the problem is solved. Okay. كيف the purchase, sales transaction, purchase, payments, receipts, هذوما كلهم تحلوا المشاكل بتاعهم على خاطر عندنا menus فيهم, right? We go to class revenues. Yeah, you see the receipt is systematic. Just to create receipt. And we saw in around we can create a receipt with a discount, ويعطيني discount, etc. خاطر I already in the setup settings I have the chance to make the linked accounts. I'm linked accounts. إذا تحط هذوما of course, the software will be able to help on the recording of the debit and credit. So just keep or put the amounts properly, and that's it. And the software will be recording the transactions appropriately. But some transactions, some particular transactions, are so repetitive, but these transactions we don't have a menu for. It's not sales, it's not a payment, it's not a purchase, it's not a receipt, etc., etc. But what is it? I give you example on one of them, one of these two, one of these repetitive transactions. For example, we can talk about what we call the loan payment. All right, loan payment. What's a loan payment? Usually, guys, the loan payment, it's a monthly transaction, right? Monthly. And every month, normally you have to debit what? An account, and you credit another one. Usually you have to debit a liability account, because when you're making a payment, the liability is decreasing, so you debit the liability account. And you credit, usually you credit cash or bank account, etc. Okay? And most likely the amount is somehow fixed, is the payment, right? Is the payment. And you know that the payment sometimes is included the principal plus interest. So you may find also a possibility to record in the debit side, not only the liability account, but you can add an expense account. So you can debit another account and say the expense account. But it's so repetitive. It's the same structure. You see that the payment minus interest, and this one is the interest expense. Okay. Depends on the loan amortization that you have, right? All right. Excellent. So if it's so repetitive transaction and we make it simple, we make it basic, it's just you put the payment this way. You debit the liability, you decrease the liability, and you credit cash. Okay. What should we do? How to record a transaction like this? Debit and liability, credit and cash, by making use of the software to give me the chance to record it. Record it and that's it. And then I will give you the way how to record them as recurrent transactions. But if I ask you to record this transaction, I get back. My question is simple. It's a loan payment, okay? And imagine that this loan payment is made each month, and the month in question is March. Is that March 31st? So we have a loan payment, and the amount is 500. Okay, and I'm asking you simply to record this transaction using the software. What shall we do to record this transaction using the software, guys?
We go to suppliers and expenses, and then we go to payments.
That's correct.
In the
That's
payments,
right.
there are multiple choices. We can choose, for example, pay
That's right.
expenses.
That is correct.
There is remittances, but actually I don't know what does it mean.
That's right. That's right. Look, so for this, what you selected is payment of an expense. You see that? Okay, I stay there. This option to go to make a payment and other payments, you see that make other payments, okay? It's an appropriate way to record transaction like this. It's inappropriate, okay? It's correct. I go back. I will get back to this one. You see that pay remittances. But by the way, what do you mean by remittance? This is your question, right?
Yes.
Guys, you have any idea about this? All right.
Remittance is the money paid either for goods or services, or as a gift, or in payment of a loan in this example.
So it could be possible that we use it, right? That we use the menu to record the transaction like this, right? That's correct. both menus are given the same option. معناتها finally نتعدى من هنا. Or I go to payment, pay expense. أنا مش نلقى روحي in the same situation. You will find it easy. No problems. but خلينا نقعد هنا but I will get back to that. Zakaria said that okay, we can record it there. What shall I do next? The payment is on March 31st. This is the same date. Imagine that the payment is by, okay, so let's say cash. Okay. And then what shall I do next?
And the option.
To the order of, you mean?
Yes, to the order of.
Yes.
We can name the person that we're going to pay, maybe the owner or something like that.
Excellent. به هو normally لازم can go to the menu. مش نبقى عندي كان suppliers, right? I'm going to pay suppliers. But هذا is not one of the suppliers. معناتها is example. يعني ناخذه as an example. قولوا بيات. Okay. بيات. You're going to pay the bank. إذا كنت تكتب بيات, is it existing in the system? No, you'll never find it. إذا باش تعدل الاكونت لهنا, بيخليكش تعدل, but it's something appearing on stage 50. The name you have entered is not in the supplier list. You can add them as a supplier if you wish, or continue without adding them as a supplier. What does it mean? معناتها تجم you add this as a supplier, لكن you have to keep track on the liability اللي معاه, وإذا كانك أنت ما تحبش يقول لك you can click on continue, simple as that. يمرك فيه معناتها. So just a system يفهم إنه you're going to pay someone اسمه بيات. Okay. It's okay. أنا عندي لك شفت الكاش, I'm going to use cash. والcash is taken from the checking bank account. This is good. معناتها الكريدت سايد عندي. The account اللي يسأل عليه now in the table is what? Is the debit account, right? The debit account. What are you going to debit? قلنا guys in the payment of a loan, so we're going to debit what? A liability account, right? Imagine in a liability هذا اسمه bank loan current portion 2120, the account number 2120, select it. Okay. You go to the amount and you write 500. Okay, that's it. The total amount that you have to pay is 500. To make sure that this transaction is well recorded, نتعدى قبل ما click on process, I go to report, display payment transaction detail. Is it the journal entry that I would like to process? The debit or liability, so you decrease the liability and you credit the checking bank account, which is the cash of 500. That's exactly what I need, right? Okay, excellent. So I can click on process, but I will not be clicking on process, but I'll do something else. Before that I click on the process, because this transaction is repetitive. It's the same transaction that is appearing every month. يا رسول الله كل شهر I have to remember that I have to process this transaction. معلش ما نعمروش يمشي يعديها وحده من غير ما يكسر لي كرايمي. What do you think about it? So we have an option here is what? Store as recurring transaction. You see? You see the bottom? Store as recurring transaction. I click on. So yeah guys, please do not lose concentration. راني ما زلت ما عملتش process. ما زلت ما I didn't process this transaction yet. It's not yet journalized. But I journalize. Before that I journalize this transaction, I click on store this as recurrent transaction. You have to name this recurrent transaction. Okay, the naming this recurrent transaction, I say bank. Okay, so we can say loan payment. Okay, loan payment yet. Another thing that is important to put is what? The frequency that I would like to put on this recurrent transaction. So is this transaction repetitive? That's exactly what we said. It is repetitive transaction. So what's the frequency? You click. You have daily, you have weekly, bi-weekly, semi, monthly, the 13th period, the bi-monthly, quarterly, semi-annually. You have a lot of things, right? So what is the frequency that I would like to select is monthly, and you click on OK.
So
What happened?
13th period.
It's just for usually we use this as a recurrent transaction for employees in payroll. For employees in payroll some companies اللي تخلص 13 mois مثلا.
Yes.
انت تحب تعطيه انه possibility انه recording not 12 times but 13 times. So okay. It's going to be there in the employees in payroll. انك تحديها as one of the recurrent transaction there.
It's clear. Thank you.
Excellent. So guys, what happened? I click on OK. يقول لي the transaction is not yet recorded. ردوا بالنا what we did is it just we store this as recurrent transaction. معناتها كنا نقدم بعد بالسيشن ديت ونمشي لابريل 30 تو يخرج لي ادفايزر يقول لي راني اوريدي عديت لك الترانزاكشن نتاع البنك لون بايمنت. ما عادش يسالك جوست يعطيك انفورميشن يقول لك راني اتس اوكي اي بروسست ذا ترانزاكشن هذيك. simple as that. اما الترانزاكشن ما زالت ما تقيدتش راه. So احنا we store this as a recurrent transaction and you click on process. What happened? Transaction number 23. So the journal number 23. As usual, I can print out a journal entry there in multiple ways. That, as you know, guys, by the report, transaction details, and I can select, of course, the whole, or you can select simply the payments, etc., etc. Okay. So المشكلة إنه أوكي إحنا we store this as a transaction أنا كان نقدم بالسيشن date to April 30th. Yeah, by the end of the month of April, right? 1 month later. Click on OK. Normally, guys, on April 30th, وانت قاعد تخدم على روحك, when you do transactions, etc., using the software, مش immediately باش يخرج لك, اما باش يخرج لك advisor يحكي معك يقول لك okay, this is the time to process the bank loan payment. You would like me that I process it? You say yes. Just you validate yes. So the transaction will be recorded systematically. فهو يذكرك لهنا as recurrent transaction. But guys, how can I recall this recurrent transaction? هنا recurrent transaction مشينا عملناها بطريقة معينة لطريقة اللي طلبها زكريا. إنه مشينا supplies and expenses we record the transaction there. بقى عندي another option. إنه نجم نعمل recurrent transaction هذه recorded from another menu. Can go to the company. And under the company, I go to the general journal. And under general journal تعدي transaction متاعك that you know. Say for example, the bank loan payment. Okay, the source document, I don't know, say the bank statement. Okay, the account, you debit and you credit. What is the account that is debited? It's 2120, it's bank loan current portion, so it's 500. And you credit what? Checking bank account, 500 account. And before that you click on process, عندك نفس البورن that is exists, store as recurrent transaction. Okay, عندك the other option. There is another option on how to record this recurrent transaction. Okay, get back to the general journal. Okay. Let's say, for example, source, I don't know, say 1. Hi guys, I would like to show you something else. After storing this as a recurrent transaction, is it possible that we make mistakes in this transaction? معناتها نغلط in how to store this as a recurrent transaction. يعني ما حقنيش حطيت في الكريدت سايد checking bank account والا نحب نبدله. فafter a certain period of time نحب نستعمل another account ولا another mode of payment. So what shall I do? I have to adjust this. Adjust what? This template. How can I do that? نفس المنيو اللي انت مشيت بيه. For example, suppliers and expenses, you go to payments. Under payment, you go to pay expenses. Okay? Before doing anything, ثم بوتون اخر بحث البوتون اللي استعملناه قبيله شو اسمه ساعه قبيله اسمه store as recurrent transaction. Now is what? Recall recurrent transaction. You click on. But clicking on recalling recurrent transaction. So in the list in the database, how many recurrent transactions do we have for repetitive transactions? Only one. شفت لي that the date last processed, the last time we processed the transaction, it was on March 31st. The next due date is April 30th. Okay. I click on. I select. شنو اللي صار؟ So guys, what is appearing is that I'm going to use this same template. تلقى عندك ال 500 هذيك etc. وchecking bank account etc. The template that is provided there. The template that is provided there. Now, are you able to change it? Of course. إذا كان أنت تختار أي account تحب تبدله. As an example, 2120 احنا استعملنا bank loan. If you would like to change it, as an example, I would change it to, I don't know, نختاره just on the fly بالغالب مثلا CPP payable. Okay. Okay. And هنا the situation is what? هنا ثم ريتها البوتون بتاع store as recurrent transaction you can click on. شفتوا إذا كان recurrent transaction is non payment to بيات, if you click on OK عبارة you modified معناتها you just changed the account. The account will be changed. Starting from now, the account that is going to be debited, it's no more 2120, it's going to be 2185. And you click on OK. معناتها you click first on recall. من بعد ما تعمل recall تمشي تعمل modification and then you store one more time. Is it okay?
Yes, it's okay, Professor.
Nice. I guess to make the things simpler, let's نختار one of the recurrent transactions that we have to do together. In addition to this, let's discard all of this. I'll go to company. Under company, go to general journal. I'm going to use another menu the other way. I don't know, for the source, you put the source number, I don't know, let's, for example, 13. Let's put it April 30 is the same date. And for the moment to pay the rent. Okay, in the account. Let's go to an expense account. All right, you see guys, there is an account that is titled rent. It's 5760. You select it. And under 5760 debit, for example, 1000. And you credit. Select, for example, the checking bank account. 1000. Okay, this is a recurrent transaction that we have to do every month. And then before that, we click on process. You go to store as a recurrent transaction. And you name this recurrent transaction. Paying rent. And you can put it monthly. Okay. By the way, guys, the current recurrent transaction, an amount is not fixed, and a structure is fixed. What do you mean? I cancel it, please. Again, for example, this is recurrent transaction. Okay, you debit this, you credit this. It's always the same, but without amount is not fixed. The amount is so variable. It could be 1,000. It could be less than 1,000. Okay. Okay. So I discard general journal. I can source T. Okay. Okay. Current. Put in the debit side. $60. You credit. So we can put it as $1. Okay, so I have to change the feature $1, and you credit it for checking bank account. Okay. If you have to store this as a recurrent transaction, you can do that. You can do that. Is it just for $1? Because I would like to change the amount every time. So you can put it simply as $1, because the next time when you have to record the recurrent transaction, you can record the recurrent transaction, but without amount. So for example, I can say to pay the rent, you record it as this way, monthly. Okay, so it's recorded, but it's stored as a recurrent transaction, but it's not yet recorded. If I go back to the general journal and you click on this database of to pay the rent, you see you have the to pay the rent, you select, you see $1. So you can change it, simple as that. You say that 500, 500. Okay, not necessary that you can put the structure. Okay, the same debit and the credit, but you change the amount every time you recall. And of course you can process. You see that if it is okay, you can process it, simple as that. You say, and yes. And this is the journal number 24. So this recurrent transaction menu is so helpful in practice, because the repetitive transactions, we have multiple and many repetitive transactions. And every time, guys, you're selecting a date and you are working in a date, and you have to remember that you must record this transaction. So the software will be helping you a lot, will be providing you with, let's say, assistance. You see that every month an advisor will appear to ask you, are you going to record this recurrent transaction? Okay, so that's the point of the recurrent transaction. I go to me first. Hey guys, is it okay for these recurrent transactions?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Please go ahead.
For example, imagine we're paying loan for 1 year and for
Yes.
equal payments of $1,000 per month. So for the recurring transactions, we want exactly 12 journal entries in the 12 upcoming months. And
Yes.
after the ending of the period, we don't want to have an advisor telling us that
Yes.
we have a recurring payment. So is
Yes.
it possible to make a deadline, for example, for this recurring payment?
For the recurrent transactions, of course, you can set the monthly, but the deadline is not provided. But you can delete this from the system. معناتها you can delete this recurrent transaction. يعني as an example, I go to general journal, for example, نستعمل this recurrent transaction هكا ولا. So هنا, when you go to the journal entry and you say recall recurrent transaction, ما مش تلقى عندك list, right? But
Yes.
you can select this and you remove it. You see, are you sure you want to remove this recurrent transaction? قول له yes. فما عادش باش يظهر لك جنب.
Yes, clear.
Make sense؟ فيعطيك هو من الاول في الاوبشن نتاع when to record the recurrent transaction، يعطيك الاوبشن انك تختار الفريكونسي، اما ما يعطيكش الاوبشن يقول لك about what is the deadline. فهمت؟ اما the only way that you remove معناتها انك تمشي you recall this transaction. نمشي للسبلاير and expenses، عندنا recurrent transaction غادي في البيمنت expenses، ما عندي هذي loan payment. وقتها من هنا نجم I remove it, right? Make sense?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, guys, any question? Any particular question? All right, guys. So if no questions, is it possible that we have a short break of 5 minutes and we go back afterwards?
Sure, yes.
All right, so we take a break of 5 minutes. 10 minutes is okay. 10 minutes and we go back. I have, let's say, just one thing to discuss with you with respect to the foreign transaction and the transactions in foreign currency. I would like to show to you how to record transactions using a foreign currency, etc. And then we close the session. Is okay. So we take just a break of 10 minutes and we go back afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, guys.
Hello, Professor.
All right. Shall we go back, please?
Okay, sir.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm moving to the last thing today is about the foreign currency transactions. Of course, guys, it's something in practice, it's something that we can find easily, right? When it comes to foreign currency transactions. All right. What's the problem of the foreign currency transactions? So I'm going to use an example. Imagine that on March 1st, um, let me say that we sold some items or some inventory items with the price, or say that selling price of 100. Okay, 100 what? Dollars. You know, guys, when recording the transaction, you have to record the transactions using the local currency. If you are selling, you know, guys, that you have to record it if you are in a US company, that you have to record transaction using the US dollar. So if you're selling with 100 on credit, you see, on credit. So the journal entry is very simple. So I have to debit what? Normally I have to debit accounts receivable for 100, and you credit sales revenue for 100. Okay. The only thing that I'm going to add, that what is sold, it's for a foreign customer. A customer, for example, in Japan. All right. The problem is that when this customer will be paying you, for example, here you prepare the invoice on $100. But if the problem is if you prepare the invoice not on the US dollar, if you prepare the invoice, for example, in the Japanese yen, okay, you prepare this in a Japanese yen. I don't know, so let's say 10,000 Japanese yen. Okay, the day you prepare the invoice and the day you receive the money, because I don't know, so because it has been sold on credit. So for example, on April 1st, imagine that you collected the money. All right, you collected the money. So if the invoice is included 10,000 yen, so maybe the currency or the exchange rate at the date of collection is not the same exchange rate, and most likely it is the case. It's not the same exchange rate at the date of the sale. So when it comes to the credit, you see that when you have an account receivable, see? This account receivable has been debited for, I say, $100, which is the equivalent of 10,000 yen at March 1st. At March 1st. The day you collect, what shall we do? Normally I have to debit cash the day of collection, and you credit account receivable. Okay. The amount of account receivable normally is 100, right? That's the point here. We have an account receivable of 100, right? But not necessarily that the cash receipt is the same as 100, because it depends on the exchange rate of the day of collection. So you may receive more, you may receive less. If you receive more, it means what? It means that you're gaining on this foreign currency transaction. So you can receive $102. To make the balance, this 2 is what? Is another credit of what? Of gain on the foreign currency exchange. Right. If it is the opposite, if you receive less, as an example, you receive 98. It's obvious that you credit account receivable. Account receivable should be offset. No more account receivable, but it's not going to be a gain, but it's going to be a loss. Okay, you debit loss. So when dealing with transactions like this, of course that it's going to be much more complicated, you see, that using the software. When using the software and when dealing with transactions like this, you know, guys, that when recording a transaction like this, we have to use the software. Okay, simple. Before that, we go to create a client invoice. For example, if you're selling to a foreign client or customer. First thing first, you have to go to the system of the software and you add the foreign currency that you are dealing with. But for example, in this software, what is the currency used? If I say, the example, if I'm going to clients and revenues, okay, and you create a client, you add a new client. Among other things, you add the name, etc. You have shipped address, you have options, okay? Here, the currency that is used is the US, is not the US dollar, but is the Canadian dollar. The problem is, if you are dealing with customers that are in the United States, you are in Canada, the company is in Canada, but is dealing with US customers. Or also, you can deal with the US suppliers. So first thing first, you have to go to setup, settings. Under setup settings, you have to go to company. And under company, you have to go to currency. All right, guys, what is the currency that is used in the software? You see the Canadian dollar. The Canadian dollar is the home currency, okay? If I would like to add other currencies used in transactions in business, as example, the USD, the United States dollar. First thing first, I have to check I want to enter transaction using foreign currencies. First thing is that you have to check this box. If it's unchecked in the table, عندك حتى foreign currency, right? So first you have to check this. I want to enter this transaction using the foreign currencies. Second, you have to fill in the track exchange and rounding differences. Yeah, guys, I think a rounding difference we talked about in here between the date of the transaction and the date of collection or the date of payment. The gain or loss on foreign exchange rate. Which account is going to be used? كاين فيك على linked account, in other words. Which account is to be debited إذا كان ثم loss? Which account is to be credited if it is gain? هذا هي account that you're tracking this difference. The account is, it's set by the system, by the way, it's 56. If I'm not mistaken, I'm looking for it. Right. $56.50, currency exchange and rounding. So you select this, track exchange and rounding differences in this account, $56.50, currency exchange and rounding. Okay, after doing that, you go to the table. In the table, you have to add the foreign currency in question. So what is it? Is the USD, right? So you select. In the database, you select the foreign currency. You go to the United States dollar. Okay, you select. All right, so this is the code, is the USD. All right. This is the symbol, US dollar. And then before that, you click on OK and you validate everything. You have a tab that we call exchange rate. And this is the most important tab. So when creating this USD or the United States dollar exchange rate, you click on it. And you have here some options that you have to fill in. All right. Is selected foreign currencies. This is the United States dollar. Okay, so this is the only foreign currency that we are using in addition to the Canadian dollar. In the first column, you have the date. Okay, what is the date? For example, we are in the session date May 1st. You select May 1st. You click on the exchange rate. What is the exchange rate at May 1st? So I have to put it there. You know, guys, you can display a reminder if the exchange rate is okay. I have to select first the exchange rate. The exchange rate is, let's take an example. It's $1. So you can purchase, let's say, 1 USD by paying 1.2 305. Okay, so for 1.305 Canadian dollar, you can purchase one US dollar. Okay, you can put this exchange rate, and then you see, guys, display a reminder if the exchange rate is 1 day old, 1 week. Say that if you are recording a transaction, usually, guys, you can have to select what is the exchange rate that you have to apply. So هنا you can ask the software. It's just to remind you if this exchange rate it's beyond 1 week or 1 day, etc. هنا كأنه يلزمك باش تعمل update. You can even use what? The currency exchange rate website. معناتها يمكن تجي تحط as a hint the website that you have to apply اللي هو يعاونك input in the database. مثلا انت next time وقت اللي تحب تحضر exchange rate you can to select the date مثلا after 1 week. اوكي وتحط شنو الاكسشينج ريت اوف ذات دي. سو هو من بعد في الترانزاكشن يختار الاقرب اكسشينج ريت للديت اوف ذا ترانزاكشن. معناتها اذا كان ترانزاكشن صارت on May 2nd راح يمشي لك للماي 1st. اذا كان فور اكزامبل از جاست ابلاينج 1 ويك. فهو هنا يستعمل ال 1 ويك از ريمايندر يعاونك يقول لك راهو اتس اولد ذان 1 ويك الاكسشينج ريت ار يو جوينج تو ابديت ات. Let's make it just for May 1st and you click on OK. It's okay. I validate. It's fine. So here's the first step. The first step is that you have to create the foreign currency. The step 2 is how can we make use of this foreign currency in our transactions. Before that we go to create an invoice, it's preferable that we add a new client. مش نزيدوا client جديد, guys. We have احنا 3 clients: Action Line, Management Consulting, Software Corporation. Let's go and let's add a new client. Add a client. The client is University Association. Okay. For the contact, David Jones. Okay, I can just the contact David. Etc. So we're going to skip all of this address, etc. It's not going to waste the time on. And you go to ship. Okay, go to options. Under options, guys, you have something important now. Is what is the currency that you're dealing with when dealing with this customer? You have here the option, of course, of the Canadian dollar, of USD, US dollar. And you can find the USD because in the step 1 we created the US dollar. Otherwise, you will never find it. Okay? In the payment, early payment terms, let's say 0%, you paid within 0 days, net due in, let's say 30 days. So of course, no discount is given. And we have a flexibility of 30 days to pay. Okay? And that's it. That's enough. Okay, so I don't need more. Save and close. What happened? I created University Association, which is the customer. اللي هو يفرق لهنا يا جاز انه ولا عادي is with US dollar. معناتها the balance is in US dollar. It's important to track the transaction. Okay? Then you go to client invoice and you are going to create an invoice with this customer. Okay? Let's say on May 1st, we keep the same date, invoice number 4. Okay? You select the customer, University Association. You see, guys, there's something interesting appearing here. Is the exchange rate, right? شفتوا guys shortcut. إذا كان أنا on May 1st هو أقرب ديت عندي في الاكسشينج ريت شنو؟ is May 1st. هو بطبيعته باش ياخذ لك الأقرب ديت. But you have to, you can select this exchange rate. The same tab that we saw on the setup settings. Then you're going to fill in this number. Right? For example, you say I'm selling to this customer an item of A15. And you select the quantity that you're selling. I don't know, let's say 4. شفتوا الفرق هنا guys؟ يعني the calculation of the invoice is what? In USD, in United States dollar, and based on the exchange rate. Okay, معناتها هنا systematically يعمل لك الconversion. Okay, and you can see report display revenue transaction detail. Make sense? And in the same transaction that we know, but it's recorded using what? The USD. Okay, and I call it is 1 United States dollars equals to 1.305 Canadian dollars. Yeah, guys, is it clear?
Yes, it's clear.
Yes. So عندنا 2 steps. Step 1 انه you create the currency. هنا I click on process. It's June number 25. And the first step is what? You create the currency. How? Set up settings. Under setup settings, you go to company. Under company, you go to currency. Under currency, you add in the tab of foreign currency. تختار شنو الكرنسي اللي تحب تزيدها, right? And then you go for the exchange rate. You select the exchange rate and you put the exchange rate and etc. ومن بعد تتعدل step 2. Step 2 اللي هي you create the client ولا supplier if it's the supplier اللي هو يعطيك invoice using another foreign currency فتختار you create a supplier. So تختار supplier, you create a supplier, you add a supplier. As usual في الاوبشن عندك الحق تختار الكرنسي اللي انت زدتها. هنا عندنا 2 currencies, the Canadian dollar and US dollar. Make sense?
Yes.
يا جايز نتعدوا للبيمنت. احنا صارت الترانزاكشن وقتاش؟ May 1st. مش نعمل I will change the session date. Guys, can I get excused, let's say, for a few seconds, please? Okay, guys, sorry, I get back to you. All right, I say that I would like to change the session date. أنا شو حاب نعمل طب؟ Honestly, حاب نتعدى للpayment. معناتها the day you collect the money from the customer. خاطر you sold on May 1st وعندك exchange rate. The collection باش تكون after a certain period of time نقولوا after 30 days. مش نتعدى لجون June 1st. This is session date, okay? So I would like to change the session date to become June 1st. Under June 1st, under clients and revenues, as usual, guys, خاطر عندي transaction, عندي invoice, عندي receipt. I have to create a receipt. As usual, نختار the mode of payment, so it's going to be by check or a direct deposit, etc., etc. مش هنحط foreign currency bank research. Okay. And I will select university association. شفتوا الامount owing is what in USD in US dollar. شوفوا شو يصير. So هنا there is no discount of course. So nothing to put there. Amount received is 91.95. اما هذه الاكسشينج ريت جايز شنو؟ is the closest to the هو الاقرب هو الوحيد in the database. هنا the transaction هذه of collection is occurring on June 1st. معناتها usually ماذا بيا ندخل الاكسشينج ريت ونعمل ابديت على شنو؟ الديت نتاع the collection. شنو الاكسشينج ريت؟ مثلا نقولوا 1.350. Makes sense? I see. I click on OK. Okay, I select it. Now, guys, what ثم difference هكا ولا if I go to report what happened? شفتوا guys the difference ما بين checking bank account يقول لك هناش خلصت in USD it's 124 هكا ولا I received 124 اما الاكونت ريسيفبل نتاعي هما 119. So الفور هذوما is what currency exchange rounding اللي هو what is an expense that is credited معناتها it looks like a revenue. So we're gaining this معناتها هو يعمل لك الادجستمنت على الاكونت هذاك كانه هو linked account that we're making the adjustment on. You got it? And I can click on process.
Yes, sir, clear.
All right. Because it's very it's the way and how can we deal with foreign currency transactions using the software. So of course, again, remember the steps are so clear. عندنا step 1 نتعديو لل setup settings ومن بعد نتعديو لل creating the client ولا creating the supplier. When creating the client or the supplier تختار ال currency ومن بعد في transactions we did an example on how to create a sales invoice, and the second how to create a receipt using the foreign currency exchange rate that is different from the foreign currency exchange rate that we recorded the transaction on. Hey guys, please, do you have any question on these foreign currency exchange transactions?
No, it's clear, Professor.
All right. All right, guys, if it is clear, and that's fine. Of course, I think that we can close today's session. That's okay. We don't have anything to add. For the next time meeting, I have just one more element to talk about, which is related to banking, because under the banking we have what we call the bank reconciliation. I will be showing to you the basic elements that we can do on the bank reconciliation. It's very important business activity on the day-to-day business activities. And then we close this program of Sage 50 level 1. And the next time meeting, I will be presenting to you guys the style of the final exam, how the final exam will look like, the nature of the questions that you may face, etc. I will be bringing with me, let's say, examples of previous final exams. And of course, you'll see that how I will be assessing you on this Sage 50, okay? And it's going to be the last session. Of course, we're going to make a closing for the Sage 50. And right there, most likely you will find the grades on the midterm exam is almost done. I did everything, so just I have to validate some grades before posting the final grades on the midterm exam. The deadline, as I told you before, for the project Remember, guys, it's on May 15th. It's May 15th, so you still have the time to submit your work. The next time meeting on May 11th, it's going to be the last chance if you'd like to ask me questions on the project, etc. And of course, you will be ready for the final exam. Inshallah, that is normally if هو during the week of the 23rd of May, if I'm not mistaken. إذا كاني مانيش غلط هو on Thursday, right? 26th.
Yes sir. وحطوهم مع taxation 2 بيناتهم نص ساعة كالعادة.
فرحوا بيكم. يعني no problems ما يصيرش. حتى كان ما يحطوش وقت يحبوا يعديوا مع بعضهم no problems أنا قابل.
والله مسيو حطونا الاكزامينات الكل في نهارين، حطونا taxation و bookkeeping فرد نهار والاي اس
Yes.
والانترميديت فرد نهار.
It's okay no problem
نكملوا
صدقني no
في نهارين ونروح.
شوف no problems at all ما يقلقش. It's not going to be يعني نحكي from the perspective of bookkeeping نحكي. You will not be finding a problem لبس.
Thank you sir. ومسيو سافا الجريدز نتاع الميد تيرم so far؟
Yes, so far so good. معناتها grades are not just to some headlines. مازال عندي grades بحقيقة just one grade that is below 60. The only one grade. For the rest of you, on average نلقى روحي في ال 85 on average. We got some grades اللي هم 100. full 100 them. Make sense?
Yes thank you that's great.
No, that's okay. معناتها it's obvious. معناتها نقول تقريبا نلقاو روحنا في البي بلس. معناتها الافريج. وراهو الافريج ما تاخذش عليه برشا خاطر ثم 1 جريد below 60 وجريد اللي هي في 60 something تقريبا close to 70 اللي هما يطيحوا الافريج. اذا نحيوهم نلقاو روحنا في الاي ماينز.
That's great sir.
Yes, so don't worry about that. Everything is okay. ما it's a software مش حاجة صعيبة. You see, if you know the features and how can we deal with this software, you're fine. You're going to be fine. It's not advanced accounting ولا special topics in accounting. إذا كان حيين بخير باش تشوفوه معايا عام الجاي. It's going to be something 180 degrees different. 180 درجة مختلفين ياسر على السوفت. كورس لايك سيج 50 ولا الاكونتنج تكنولوجي اند بوك كيبينج. الكورس هذا نحبه برشا على خاطر it's a course that is so light, it's not difficult, it's giving some practical thing on accounting, how can we use the softwares, but no difficulties in it. معناتها تعرف ولا ما تعرفش. If you know how to treat this, I will not be challenging you on accounting, I will be challenging you on the software. ما فماش حاجة صعيبة باش تشوفوها. ما شفنا شيء صعيب. It's just level 1. Okay. Yeah, guys, thank you so much. If you don't have any question, of course, thank you so much. Yes, please.
Regarding the practice session
Yes.
of last time,
Yes.
you told us you're gonna upload a video في الكوريكسيون and what we should do because it was a bit confusing.
Right. You owe me a video recording to show you the points that are challenging. Okay? That's right. I will be uploading this video on the BA platform. فيها البوينتس اللي that are challenging, especially for the non-sufficient fund, if I'm not mistaken. هكا ولا
Yes, the last point of the
Yes.
non-sufficient fund.
That's right.
Well,
Alright.
I think that I found the solution, but I don't know if it's the right one or no.
Okay. يعني Zakaria, you can see I will upload the video and you check whether it's not is the same or not, right?
Yes, I can check. Thank you, sir.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Oh, Professor, everything's all right.